And welcome everybody. And on behalf of Kyle and I, we're very excited to host today's webinar. As Seema mentioned, we're a mission-driven digital marketing agency, and we've teamed up with TechSoup to help bridge the technology gap amongst nonprofits seeking to transform their website development efforts in the digital age. We've supported hundreds of leading organizations in the nonprofit space, supporting their endeavors, and are super excited to share experience and expertise with you. So let's get started. So you probably joined today because you're either a do-it-yourselfer who, if you have the right tools, can pretty much figure out how to improve your marketing assets and website on your own. Or you know you could be doing better with your calendar plan website but aren't quite sure where to start. Either way, you're in good hands. And today we're going to go through 7 easy-to-follow directives to improve your organization's website and online presence. And at the end, we're going to share some bonus information on how to measure your current results to get started right away. We'll include key understandings and key takeaways. We'll also include some pop culture references for you millennials and boomers out there, and we'll throw in some cheesy stock photos for good measure. So what we'll cover: homepage design, SEO, accessibility, security, mobile responsiveness, content strategy, and CRM. These are all the key ingredients to a healthy website, and we'll tie it all together. And then we'll answer questions and introduce you to some free tools and graders and services that we can help support your website with. So now for some fun facts and stats and why we're here. So we'll just cruise through these, but 50 milliseconds. That's 0.05 seconds, and that's the amount of time it takes for a user to form an opinion about your website according to SWOR.com. That means they stay or they go based on what they see. First impressions matter, and today we'll cover web design fixes to make sure they stay put. Also, according to Statista in 2019, more than 52% of all traffic was from a mobile device. That's more than half, and 50% of internet users that say they won't recommend an organization if their website is poorly designed for mobile. That is also more than half. So you passed your math test, and yes, we'll cover mobile optimization as well. 38% of adults say they won't interact with the website if the content is deemed unattractive. So we'll review how blogs are the Botox of your website to boost traffic and really boost people coming and staying on your site. 80% of users are not coming back to your site if they had a bad experience. And then finally, 70% of websites from small organizations lack a call to action on their homepage. So what is the user to do? This leads to high bounce rates, and these facts relate to UI and UX, which we'll also cover today. So it's definitely a lot to think about when it comes to your website. So we'll move on and discuss why these things are important, and for each one of these elements, we'll discuss, like we mentioned, the key takeaways and understanding how these all work together.
Thanks, Joe. Those numbers are great, but we really want to talk about why those numbers are important and why it matters. So think about your audience. Are they coming to your website? Are they staying there once they come there? And are they taking the actions you want them to take, whether that's donations or signing up to volunteer or whatever it might be? If you're not answering yes to each of these questions, then you're going to want to pay close attention today. Some of these are likely important, donations, volunteers, sponsorship, obviously to your organization. Without them, you might not even exist. Did you know also that your nonprofit can qualify for up to $10,000 a month in Google Ad grants? It's true, but Google has some strict guidelines that they expect your organization to follow, and they need your website to be safe, secure, relevant, and trustworthy. We'll cover all that more later. Not just Google though. Your visitors you need to build trust with them as well, and then your board does as well too. So they need to know that if they're putting money up there for this website to be created or for your initiatives, that you're able to build trust with them and show them and the impact that you're making. And finally, I just said impact. You're not just showcasing it, but you actually need to be making an impact on your website. Your website can be much more than just a marketing vehicle. It can serve a purpose, whether that's collecting information, automating some of your messaging so you can get back to doing what your organization is supposed to does best, or if that's, providing information for someone to come learn about upcoming events or how they can give back to. Just find a way to make your website truly work for you. And then one day you can be a nonprofit marketing superhero.
Great. So now that our species attention span has been eclipsed by the goldfish, it's time to really focus on capturing our audience's attention when they land on our website. So today we'll discuss the 5-second rule, because within 5 seconds of landing on your website, you have to ask yourself, can your visitors determine what your .org does? Could users easily navigate to the blog or donation page if they need to? Is the layout of your value proposition or action steps easy to understand? And if you're finding yourself answering no to these questions, they are not likely to go any farther and you failed the 5-second rule. And it might be time to take a hard look at your site's UI and UX. So we're here to demystify that, and we'll cover those on the next few slides.
Often you'll hear now, not more than just design, you'll hear about UI or UX, user interface or user experience. User experience, UX design, places an emphasis on the interactive part of your website. It's the behavior, the design, and how supporters and visitors are interacting and engaging with you. Whereas UI or user interface is the actual architecture and the content and the sitemaps, so think buttons, navigation, things of that nature. Some things that matter for user experience: your website always needs to be useful. Your content should be useful, and your website should be useful. Someone should be able to come there and use it and get the content or get to the place that they need, easily, quickly, and efficiently. It needs to be accessible. We'll cover this more later as well. It needs to be the offerings, whether that's donate, download, register, volunteer, contact, learn more. It's got to be easy to navigate from and easy to locate. Your website should be credible. The ability to build some users' trust with the information that you're providing them, and then it needs to be desirable. So desirability can be in things like the design process. So it's easy to see, it's easy to navigate, the content is easy to read, or it's the actual desired content that they're there for. For user interface, some factors that matter to you would be, intuitiveness and consistency. So, buttons should always be the same, similar sizes, similar colors, so people can get used to how they're supposed to use your site and know that, okay, this orange button means I'm supposed to take an action there. You should be creative, but keep it familiar. So it's good, from like a designer's perspective, to identify and integrate things that users are comfortable with. So think about your organization, think about the design of your site. Is it familiar to someone who might, visit your brick and mortar location or attend one of your events? User interface should also be flexible. So, handling updates, making sure that it works across different devices, also making it responsive. Responsive is a few things. It means a few things. It means the swiftness of your web page, so the ability to change from one screen to the next, from one page to the next. It's also the software behind it working quickly, to provide a responsive result to someone when they visit it. And think about a mobile phone and a desktop. The site should respond to the site, to the application that it's on. So, when you visit your organization's website from your phone, are you able to do the same things you are from the desktop without having to, for example, resize the screen? So here's some quick ways to, make these things possible. First, just be authentic with your website and be authentic with the design. When you're planning the design process, don't overcomplicate it. Keep the messaging, the who, the what, the why, and the how, at the forefront of your website. So when someone gets there, they can easily find out who you are, what you're doing, why you're doing it, and how you've done it in the past. You want to really connect with your personas, so making sure that you are connecting with your prospective audiences, but also the audiences that actually are visiting your site. You can do that with things like images. So, don't use stock photos. Don't just go download the most recent, the photos you see on Shutterstock or something like that. If you've got really authentic video or photo from a recent event or some fundraisers, something you've done in the past. And you're also going to want to use some captivating content. So, what is going to elicit a response from your users, your visitors? When you're planning your site out, think about mapping out the navigation so you can guide a user through your site quickly. You don't want them taking a bunch of steps to get to one place. So if they want to learn the mission, put the mission right in the header. If the goal of your site is just to reach out and contact you or request information, make sure it's easy for the user to get there. One of the best ways to do this besides the navigation is by implementing calls to action. So think about the buttons you see on a site: learn more, maybe download, register, contact, or as I said, donate, and keep those consistent throughout the site. So if you've got a donate button, leave it in the header of every page of your site, or make sure it's always in the footer, so when someone comes there, they know they can always get right to that donate button. You start to, kind of create that familiarity. And then you'll see this. I mean, this is kind of common. You'll see, social media sharing and follow buttons throughout the site, but give your users a way to connect and stay connected with you.
Great, thanks, Kyle. And beyond UI and UX, the next natural thing that we want to take a look at is search engine optimization. And I mean, your website needs to be found, right? So you might have current members, visitors, supporters who already know your site by name. They go and enter your address in the browser. But what about your most desired audiences you seek to connect with, who need to hear your story and support your cause? Surely you're not just typing in your URL and hopefully your site shows up. Wouldn't that be something nice? No, they should find your website by searching for terms or topics or keywords that are relevant to your site's mission, theme, and content. If you want your website to show up as one of the results, you want to make sure it's built and optimized for search engines. So Kyle's going to go over some basics of SEO to get started.
Thanks. I'll try not to bore you with all the technical jargon on this page, but there are two parts really for understanding SEO. There's technical SEO. This has to do with the tools and the code that you or your web developer put in place. Sometimes this kind of comes, quote unquote, built into the platform that you use. And then there's content SEO. So technical SEO are things like, your website sitemap, your robots.txt, and these are things that lead to search engines giving them the ability to crawl your site. So if you've ever been to, if you ever searched on Google and you see those pages that come up where it'll have the one part, like the home page of the website, and you'll see a bunch of links to other pages right below that. That site's probably got a really strong sitemap built so that Google is able to crawl it, they're able to understand what it's about, and able to present that to you as the person searching. There's also alt text on images, and you'll hear us talk about this in a few other sections here, but that's the text that when you're uploading an image or an image doesn't load on a screen, that's the text that appears there. And makes it so that search engines can't really see an image, although they can, more and more each day. It lets them know what that image is supposed to be a picture of or what's included in that image. So if there's text on an image, there needs to be alt text behind it. There's also the way that the site is coded up, the way it's developed. So if you're using different technologies, sure, the site might look beautiful, but it might not load well for a search engine, and a crawler might not be able to see that based on how the code is written. They also, one of the other things that go into technical SEO are speed and security. So speed would be, how quickly a website loads and how big the website is. You don't want to be forcing someone, for example, over a slow connection or on a mobile phone to have to load large pages, large images, large video to get the site to work well for them. And then you want to make sure the site's secure. So having an SSL installed, making sure the site doesn't contain malicious code. Google and the other common search engines are going to look for that and give preference to the ones that are quick, secure, and include these different features. The more understandable part of SEO is content. So Google wants to know that your page is worthy of whatever topic that you need to be ranked for. So they need to know that your content is worthy of ranking it for that. It's relevant. It's legitimate, right? And some of the ways they do this is by, just looking at how users are actually using your website, but also the content, how the content is built throughout your website. So if your homepage is about, an after-school program, and you've got pages within your website that talk more about other after-school programs and the benefit of having these after-school programs in the community, Google will start to, over time, realize that that's what your website's about, especially if you have like links out to other sites about after-school programs, and there's other sites linking back to you about that. But if your homepage is about, after-school program, and your inner pages are about, the shopping mall and something about selling different products, or just donations that are just very vague in general, Google's going to have a hard time understanding that, just as your website user might. And then it also wants to know that your content's easily readable, not just by the search engine, but also by people. Is it written for the common audience to read? So depending on what, who that common audience is, the industry standard is usually about a 5th to 8th grade reading level that you want to write for. There's a hierarchy of things too. They want to know that like the way your website's laid out is easy for a user to kind of skim, because the average person is not reading the entire page. They're actually skimming it. They're looking at the bullet points, the headers, and your site should be structured accordingly. There's some easy ways to, without having to reinvent the wheel or go learn how to develop a website on your own, to put some of these things in place so that you can have technical SEO and the content SEO. The first is getting a robots.txt and a sitemap set up. There's some great tools. You'll see some links. We'll share this slide deck with you, but WordPress has a tool called Yoast SEO, which actually just packages the robots.txt and the sitemap up for you. So those will be created, and then you can kind of configure them from there. And then you want to be able to tell the search engines that, okay, we've got these sitemaps, you should be crawling our content. There's some links in here, but the easy ways are just to go to Google Webmaster Tools. There will be a box there for you to submit that sitemap, submit your robots.txt, and let it start crawling your site. So it's great that you can, most sites, if you got a Wix site or something like that, a lot of them are going to create these things automatically for you as well. But just, go on, make sure it's configured to be crawlable, and that Google knows that you exist. You also want to tell everybody else, share your new website, any of that content on social media with your fans, because getting that link out there, getting that relevant content out there is what Google's looking at. It's not really just about Google, but we're talking about SEO here. It's the search engine optimization. They are like the king of search, right? So share your recent article updates, share your newly designed website and things of that nature out there on social media so other people can find you. And then once you've got some content out there, once you put these things in place, there's some other things that you can do to kind of go deeper down this to dive into it. There's tools like SEMrush and Moz SEO. Again, we'll have these links available for you to take a look at how you're performing, and then make some tweaks to increase your search engine rankings.
Great, thanks, Kyle. And a natural segue from SEO is naturally accessibility. And according to the CDC, 1 in 4 people live with a disability in the United States alone. That's 61 million adults. So if your website and its content excludes people living with a disability, you could be losing out on the potential of converting a very large audience, many who may need your services that your cause supports. Plus, many grants demand it. And we've had a lot of websites that we've built because the organizations have gotten the grant, but those grants demanded that the website be built to abide by the WCAG guidelines, website content accessibility. So what that is it provides technical specifications to improve the accessibility of web content, websites, and web applications on desktop computers, laptops, and for people of a wide range of disabilities. So with that in mind, Kyle will run through, some ways to really address these issues to support these folks with disabilities who need to access your website, and also to help you get those grants and to help connect and educate the folks who need your services the most.
Great, thanks, Jeff. So you'll probably notice these slides are there's some kind of abstract background, and these are actually built to show part of accessibility, the design in the background, which is hard for different users, people that have color blindness or problems with contrast. They won't be able to see the same things that other users can see. And accessibility really has to do with the user. Think about what your user needs, what they need to do with your website, and how they can get those desired results. And if you're putting up hurdles by, contrasting colors or not contrasting colors, or hard to read text over images and things like that, it's going to be hard for them to consume it. you really want to think about things like movement. So like what action or movement does the user need to take to engage with your website? Think about vision. So which text, which images, which colors, shapes are needed for that user to understand the website. Think about hearing. Are there audible parts of your website? Is your website heavily based on video, and is there audio over the video that requires the user to hear that to consume the content on your website and really understand what your site's about? And lastly, readability. So how much time and how understandable that, as we talked about earlier, the content is for the average user. You know, don't make it too hard for someone to consume the content. And also don't make the content too small for someone to see, right? Some ways that you can make sure that you're designing and building your website to be accessible would be to start designing with people with disabilities or with disability in mind. And then that way it'll work for everyone. It's really about inclusion, not exclusion. Content's often used to tell users what to do, but try not to tell someone like use directional language throughout your website. So you don't want to say things like scroll down for more or see the form on the right side of the page for a few reasons. Like think of the see the form on the right side of the page. That won't work if you're on a mobile device and your site's built for mobile. You're going to have, it's going to be, you know, the form's going to be at the bottom of the page because it stacks that way. But you also don't want to, you know, drive someone to say, see this if, you know, they are visually impaired or they're on a device that it won't render for. You're going to want to be able to check the contrast to your website and not use text that's too hard on the eyes. So think about two colors that clash with each other, or you know, white text on a black background or something like that. Sometimes that might look visually appealing to you, but it's not going to be easy to consume. We'll include some links here like contrastchecker.com, webaim.org, which have some great tools for you to check the color contrast to your current site or as you're planning a design. If you're working with a good designer, you know, make sure that they're thinking about this as they're building that website out. Just like your website's optimized for search, many of those items you're going to carry over here too. So if you took some of those cues we mentioned earlier, think about providing alt text on images. So, you know, since the user might not be able to see the image and the search engine might not be able to see the image, making sure that there's alt text back there behind, telling the person what's supposed to be in the image, if that's part of the actual design, is going to help with like screen readers or users that are navigating a site that are either visually impaired, as I mentioned. Think about if your website has like a link or a button that says click here. You know, you want to be able to give context there. So as I said, you don't want to say scroll down for more, but you do want to say something like besides just here, because here doesn't really have any information. So think about like read more about this topic on, you know, google.com or something like that, and then having that be the link text or something like that, so that users know it's not just click here and they don't know where here is, where that takes them. As I mentioned, webaim.org has a lot of these easy to follow checklists and guides that you can start to understand how your site can be more accessible. And I'll turn it to Joe to talk about security.
Sure, thanks, Kyle. All the accessibility and UI and UX and SEO will be for naught if your site's not secure. And why is security so vital to your website's success? I mean, besides the liability and costs associated with full-on Mr. Robot data breach, there's many other reasons that folks don't even consider. Here, three of them are trust. For example, today's browsers will actually tell a user that the website isn't secure, and that's an immediate red flag. So do you think your visitors want to be on a website that tells them that they could be at risk? Well, they surely won't provide information or donations if they're concerned that their data could be compromised. And a lot of nonprofit websites do come up with that red flag that they're not secure, and that's something that you should really look at immediately. And then search. Search engines rank websites partially based on the trust that comes from the site connection and content being secure. And similarly, a search engine like Google can blacklist websites that have a tarnished reputation of not being secure or that have been hacked in the past. And like I said, that mitigates all the SEO efforts you have put together if Google believes that your site is not secure. And then also along with Google ad grants require that your website be secure as well and have the proper SSL installed. If not, you could jeopardize losing, that $10,000 a month ad grant that you've been working on. So a lot of other reasons that it's super important to make sure your site's secure. And the next slide, we'll take a deeper dive into strengthening your website security in 2020.
So as Joe mentioned, there's more to website security than just having that SSL, but the SSL is really one of the key things that Google and even your visitors are going to look out for. So what an SSL is, it means that the data between your browser and your web server is encrypted. So when someone submits a form with a credit card information in it, or if they want to put their personal information in it, they want to know that that's safe. And if you go to websites now, you'll see that a lot of times it'll pop up a little red box or a security alert that says this site isn't secure. You really don't want that on your site, but that's an open door for a hacker to jump in and intercept that information. And then there's a firewall. So firewalls is a piece of hardware or software that works like a wall just between those two networks. So having a firewall or a VPN installed on your computer at your house, there's the same thing as possible for your website, having something that blocks users from entering your site, making changes, or digging up that user information that might exist in the back end of your website. There's more to it too. There's things like having a secure web host and making sure that your website code is up to date and patched, and we'll cover that on the how-to slide here. The first step to keeping your site secure would be there's a common security plugins, whether you're using a platform like Wix or Squarespace that has some security built in, but some added security, or if you're using a website like content management system like WordPress, there's a number of security plugins out there that are available for you. Some are free, and there's obviously paid versions of these, but a few that we can recommend are like Sucuri or WordFence or iThemes, which allow you to install them, and then it'll have a lot of these tools that we're talking about built into it, like SSL, connecting your SSL, but a firewall. It'll have attack protection. It'll have file change protection and things like that to keep unwanted users out. Number two, but probably should have been number one, was using HTTPS. So having that SSL installed. Nowadays, you can get a free security certificate if one doesn't come with your web platform. A lot of times, depending on your host, they'll offer that, or depending on your domain provider, they'll offer that as well. But think about there's a company called Let's Encrypt that you can go to, or Cloudflare, which you can go right to. You put your domain name information in there. It'll take you through a few steps, and it'll help you install that SSL so that it can encrypt that traffic. You want to keep your website platform and all your software up to date. So some ways of doing that would be, making sure that you've got the most recent version of the software downloaded, it's installed. You want to have plugins updated. So if you're using an open source software like Drupal, Joomla, or WordPress, making sure you have trusted versions of those plugins, because a lot of these tools created by open source software, the code's easily accessible to hackers, and the hackers can find vulnerabilities in this code to take control of your website. They can exploit weaknesses, and they can, create some distrust within that. And then, there's a kind of a snowball effect from there if it gets dinged by Google for not being secure. Just quickly make sure you've got secure passwords, so don't use words like password as your password. I know TechSoup's got some great articles and content on internet security that are worth checking out for, and applying that to your website as well. Make sure you've got a backup of your website. There's, again, free and paid tools that you can use to make sure that you've got, daily or as needed backups. And as we mentioned, having a firewall in place. You can get this information, these tools through Cloudflare, WordFence. If you have WordPress, and they start off with a free plan, and they can move up from there. But think about how you keep your home network secure, you keep your personal information secure, and kind of apply those same practices to your website so that you're protecting the information of your visitors and users of the website.
Thanks, Kyle. And similar to security, mobile optimization further affects your user experience, search engine ranking, and ability to secure ad grants as well. If you look at user experience, as we noted earlier, more than half of today's website visitors come from mobile. And if your site's not mobile optimized, they're going to bounce. That's your bounce rate. They come, they see your site, and then they leave. So think about how you and your users engage with content, and think about the channels your content is shared on. For sites like Facebook and Instagram, where you may have some really great engagement, when those folks come over to your site and your site's not mobile optimized, you're going to lose them. And if you're using those channels to drive traffic, you can be sure that they're also coming to the site from their mobile devices. So the number's likely much higher than 50% once you start engaging with users on social. Even more important to look at why your site should be mobile optimized. And then search. Search engines like Google consider a long list of elements when deciding how mobile friendly a website really is and rank sites based on these factors. So Google switched to a mobile first index, which means it's using the mobile content of a web page to determine its search engine ranking. So if you're not mobile optimized, you're going to get left in the dust on search. And even if they do find your site, they're not going to be able to navigate properly. And then again, Google Ad Grant, which a lot of us, and the fellow nonprofits are really seeking, requires that your website be mobile friendly. And if you don't pass these different requirements, again, you won't get your grant. So there's a lot more to mobile optimization than just these few things. And Kyle will take a little deeper dive into why mobile is important and the best way to get it up to speed quickly.
Yep. So what does it mean to be mobile optimized? It means that your site needs to be load quickly. It needs to resize correctly for the device. The layout needs to be optimized for mobile and built for mobile. You have to be able to take the same activity on your mobile site that you could on a desktop site. You might pare some of the features down, but they need to be able to engage similarly and get to the same endpoint. Think about things like buttons, links. It shouldn't be a challenge for a user to engage with that content on mobile, just like it should on a desktop. You also don't want to make a user have to pan and zoom to read the website content. So the things like the text need to resize for your mobile device as well. Some quick ways to get started, to get your site mobile optimized. When you're designing it, think of your website as mobile first. With more than half of visitors now coming from mobile, and a lot of the promotion that nonprofits are doing coming through things like social media, which is even greater than half, or almost 3/4 or more from mobile sites, your visitors are likely going to come, to your website first time from the mobile phone. So if you're using a site like WordPress or Wix, some of these things can be as simple as installing a responsive theme. It might take more like working with your developer or designer to make sure the site's laid out for mobile and optimized that way when you're designing it. There's also a lot of platforms now that offer what's called an AMP, or accelerated mobile page, which Google gives preference to, that they can create alongside your normal page. And these are like lightning fast, smooth loading pages that prioritize user experience above everything else for a mobile phone. So they're not going to load, heavy images and heavy video if they're not needed for the user to engage with your content. So it speeds up that load time, reduces the size, and is really optimized for mobile. And whether you're using AMP or not, there's small tweaks that you can make to help increase that page speed. So think about things like enabling caching on your website. Again, these are plugins, tools that you can enable through a lot of common platforms, and keeping your image sizes too small. If you take a picture with your cell phone, chances are that's going to be a pretty large photo. So when you upload it, make sure it's resized. You don't need a 6,000 pixel wide photo loading that's just going to be a thumbnail. These small tweaks are going to go a long way to help speed up your load time, or reduce the load time, speed up the time that a user can spend on the site, and make the site mobile optimized.
Great. And then one of the most important things that comes along with mobile optimization is content. So we like to look at things as content is always sunny in Philadelphia and around the world when it comes to marketing. Content is king, content is queen. It's really everything in between. And unlike traditional outbound marketing tactics like direct mail, ads, TV ads, telemarketing, which can be expensive, content marketing is a cost-effective inbound form of marketing that uses compelling content to attract people to your organization. So consider this. Here's some facts. Inbound marketing delivers 54% more leads than traditional outbound marketing and could be a lot less expensive. 80% or more of the most effective nonprofit marketers who were surveyed have someone overseeing a content marketing strategy. So sure, a lot of nonprofits may, they may blog and they may, send out emails, but having an overarching strategy is critical. So by creating and distributing shareable, valuable content through these multiple channels and connecting them, you can really engage your target audiences, build your website traffic, build relationships that compel people to take action, whether it's volunteering or becoming a member, etc. And all this in turn can really help your organization increase its reach and boost your fundraising efforts as well. So here, Kyle's going to go over a few best practices and processes to really help build your content marketing strategy through this inbound marketing methodology.
Yeah, so the inbound methodology really involves relevant content at every stage of the, a funnel, so to speak, or a prospect's journey. So taking someone from a stranger all the way to a promoter, with things like blogs, social media pages, forums, and call to action. But just meeting the right visitor, driving the right visitors to your site and converting them with the correct content. So by creating content designed to address their problems or their needs, for each ideal audience, you're going to attract these qualified prospects, you're going to build trust, and you're going to build credibility ultimately for your organization. The way you can do that is by just getting started. So, set your mission and your goals and start a blog. One of the easiest way to get relevant, fresh content out there is to get a blog up. It's usually included as part of your website package, or you can add it for free, and then just be consistent with that blog. So that can be just simple articles that you post. It can be original content. It can be curated content that you're sharing from other key opinion leaders. But just take a few hours, maybe 1 week, and create some of this content to get ready to post, and then just schedule it out for either weekly, monthly, whatever works best for you. You don't have to bite off more than you can chew. You don't have to overdo it. You don't have to post every single day if that's going to distract from you going after your mission. But Google's looking for you to have you and your site to have fresh, relevant content. They don't want stagnant content that's been the same home, about, and contact page for 2 or 3 years. So getting a blog up there is one of the easiest ways to get this thing rolling. And then don't forget about following some of those SEO best practices we talked about earlier. The other great thing about having a blog and having this fresh content is now you've got something to share, right? So you can share this content on social media. That way the world knows you posted it. The content will live out there for some time, and if it becomes a post that gets a lot of feedback or traffic, you could reshare it, and you can go back and update it over time to get some longevity out of it. And we'll share, as I said, I'm going to try to breeze through this because I know we've got about 15 minutes left, but we'll share some of these resources like creating a content calendar, establishing KPIs, developing personas will be available in this slide deck at the end.
Sure, thanks, Kyle. And the seventh critical component to consider for your website is the CRM. So you may ask yourself, do nonprofits really need to invest in using a CRM system to manage their content and their contact data? The answer is yes. Whether you're big or small nonprofit, a CRM will help you strengthen and grow valuable relationships and opportunities. So a CRM, it's really a cloud-based technology software that allows organizations to effectively manage and document customer and stakeholder data in a systematic way. CRMs are a must-have in the commercial and private sector in order to manage customer information, identify sales opportunities. However, organizations within the nonprofit sector aren't always sure if it's the right fit for them. They're not selling a product, so why should they invest in using one? Well, here's why. While their purpose and functionalities may not instinctively appear relevant from a nonprofit standpoint, CRM capabilities are in fact extremely beneficial to mission-driven organizations, from maintaining strong relationships with constituents, to segmenting supporters by issue and interest areas, to tracking membership activities and streamlining the donation process. CRMs give nonprofits the power to manage their data confidently and effectively. And with a lot of changes in technology, CRMs are a lot more cost-effective now, and there's a lot more automation built in. So nonprofits who are smaller can now afford these, and you could have someone who wears many hats. This could be one of the hats they wear and really take advantage of it.
Yeah, and what is a CRM? I saw a question actually come through. A CRM is just a contact relationship management tool. It helps you track your individual contacts and what they're doing with your organization. So this can be something like if you've got a donor database, you've probably got a CRM or the starting of a CRM. But it's just that tool. So getting things out of individual Excel spreadsheets and into one centralized contact management place is, what a CRM is. It helps you connect user information. It can help you, set your marketing efforts apart so you can grow traffic, convert more visitors with landing pages and automation and analytics based on the activity you're tracking in there. So think about someone coming to your website. Now you're able to track where they came from. You're able to track where they went. They fill out a form on your website that gives some more information about them. Now you learn something about them. Maybe that's the first day they enter, and then they come back because you sent them an email because you knew what form they filled out, you knew what pages they landed on, you knew which channels they came from. You can send them a relevant email to drive them back there to attend an event or give you a donation, and now you're starting to collect that information about them so that next year when it's time to ask for donations again, you reach out to those people a year later. There's sales, quote unquote, or donation automation tools that are available to run out of your CRM. And there's also service tools too. Think about maybe you have an after school program where you've got a list of students in this or students' parents in your CRM, and you're able to provide feedback to those parents. You're able to say, hey, school's closed today because we have this list in this database. You're able to let the parents know that maybe one of their children didn't show up that day or whatever it is. But there's a way to, track users in that CRM and really provide value. And one of the easiest ways to get started, there's plenty of CRMs out there. There's a lot that you could find going through TechSoup. We can make recommendations. We'll include some as part of this as well. But when you do, just define your marketing plan. So understand what you need a CRM for. You don't necessarily need to go get the most robust tool that's out there that can do all these things. Just figure out what works for you. And then figure out how big you think your database is going to be, because some of these tools that aren't free are based on the number of contacts. And if you've bought lists over time and you've got, legacy lists from 5-6 years ago, a lot of those contacts might not be relevant anymore. So just think about the size of that. Understand your nonprofit's communication requirements. So what do you need to do with the people in this database? Do you need to send emails to them? Do you need to make phone calls from the CRM? And make sure you're selecting a tool that allows you to do that, allows you to track that engagement. One thing you can do is get a tech audit. So, have someone we're happy to do it at TAP with TechSoup. There's other organizations out there that will do these technology audits for you to understand, what tools exist, what needs to be integrated into the CRM, what different databases are out there that you have that need to be consolidated. And then from that, you can kind of develop that plan and the budget for having this CRM. But think about this as the database that lives at the center of everything and kind of can control the traffic, but also can also track the activity and engagement over time.
Great, thanks, Kyle. So we just want to move on here. We've gone over UI, UX, SEO, accessibility, security, content, mobile responsiveness, CRM. I know it's been almost a crash course in all these, but hopefully this will help get you started on the right questions to ask. Another way you can really start to begin asking the right questions is to have a website wellness report, which we've created in partnership with TechSoup, where you can go and enter your URL and we'll grade your website on a lot of the things we've discussed today, such as SEO, page speed, and things of that nature. On the next slide, thanks, Kyle. On the next slide, there's the URL. You can access this from TechSoup, but if you click on that link and we'll send this deck out, you'll be able to have each component of your website is reviewed as part of your wellness report, and then we'll grade your site on how healthy it is by the number of parts you see in the result, and you'll be given advice and support on how to fix it, and you'll get a nice pat on the back. So it's kind of a DIY, do-it-yourself way to really help enhance your website and grade it and take a look, take it back to your team, and really begin to make these improvements on your own. So feel free to share and use that link and get your own report. And then finally, we're very excited to announce that TechSoup and TAP, we've joined forces to provide kind of the leading edge and cost-effective website services that nonprofits deserve. And for a sneak peek at the offering, you can go to page.techsoup.org/website-services, and we'll send the deck out again as well. But there's no risk at all with, you don't want to really risk it all, really, with an intern and doing a lot of this or hiring a costly firm. And, kind of what we've done here is got our experts together to serve as your trusted team of website strategists, designers, developers, and project managers to kind of guide you along the way with your website questions and consultancy. So we have a free website wellness report, as we mentioned, really cost-effective, $49 consultation to get you on the phone and get off on the right foot. And then everything up to a $499 tune-up, where we actually get under the hood and take a look at your site and make some of those fixes you may need before having to go out and crashing your own site or hiring a big firm. So anyhow, if you're interested in building out your website or launching a new one, we're here to help. And so take a look at that site, and now we'll kick off a Q&A and answer any questions you may have. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Joe. So I'm going to go ahead and move into the Q&A. We only have a few minutes left, but we're going to try and answer as many as we can. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So the first question that we have here, do you need a lot of content when you first roll out your site? And then they said part of our website will be forums for questions with answers from our experts. Do we need to post sample questions and answers to be already on the site from day one?
Sure, I'll take that one. Don't kill yourself trying to come up with content just to launch with. We see a lot of people that have, I call, launch anxiety. They work on their website so long and they never get it out there. Make sure that the spelling's correct and the content that you need that's launch critical is there. And think of this as a living, breathing thing, right? So you don't need to have 20 pages of content when you launch, but there are some best practices that we can share for when you do create content. So things like making sure it's at least 300 words of content on a page, and the page is structured well so that as you add content to it over time, Google's following you, paying attention, giving you preference. But just make sure that you're, again, design everything for the user. So make sure that what the user needs to see when they get there is there when you launch the site. So that's your mission, the about, maybe some case studies or the impact statement. And then to the question about the forum, it's good to have like some seed questions on there so that people can start responding and reacting to that. Forums are a little bit different. They're weighted differently than the typical like content website. So think of a forum as something separate. The forum is going to be like a Q&A, knowledge-based type of thing that gets indexed differently because it's all user-generated content. So it doesn't have the same level of trust or preference that Google is going to give you for keyword ranking or something like that it's going to do for search engines.
Okay, perfect. And then in terms of websites, so we got this question a couple times. Do you have any examples of websites that you consider to be structured, well, and user-friendly?
Certainly. I think we're going to send an email out to all the registrants today, and maybe we can create like a link tree that will have some examples of some well-designed websites that are user-friendly and mobile optimized.
Okay, and then are there any specific CRM recommendations? It's so confusing for those of us with a small budget, and I know for those of you guys who are curious about CRMs, we have a blog post on TechSoup that we can send out in the follow-up email, but Kyle or Joe, if you have any recommendations.
Yeah, we have some, but again, I do know that blog post is helpful for when you're selecting a CRM. I know there's quite a few available if you go through TechSoup's product catalog, and I think it's really just look for something scalable that you can get started with. That's not going to lock you into something like for a year when you're trying to, kind of just get your feet wet. One that we like to recommend is called HubSpot CRM because it is free. It allows you to start tracking right away. It's not going to have all the bells and whistles, obviously, in the free version. It's not going to be a donor management tool per se right out of the box, but it's a good way to get started and have a centralized database at the middle. I know Salesforce and Microsoft Dynamics also offer versions of, free versions or discounted versions for nonprofits. But we don't like to. In some cases, like with this, there is a one-size-fits-all approach that does work well. Being able to track everything in one place that doesn't need to be specific to, just donations or just volunteers that wouldn't be scalable. So look for something scalable, something that works with any or all of your systems, and that can be added on to over time.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and we'll be sure to send that link out in that follow-up email for everyone. And then let's see, we got another question here. Does WordPress Yoast come as part of WordPress, or is there an additional cost to utilize the tool?
Yoast is free. It doesn't come with WordPress, but you can do a search in like the plugin library, just search for Yoast SEO, and then you can install it for free. They will offer like a premium version, but you won't need that to get what you need out of it, to get a sitemap set up, to get a robots.txt file, and even make tweaks to like your titles and tags like that.
Okay. And we only have a couple more minutes here, so I always kind of like to wrap it up with, maybe if there's like 3 things that, our nonprofits can do to sort of get started, kind of where do you recommend? Like, is it, getting the wellness report, or what do you kind of recommend in terms of where they can get started? Because there's a lot of content here, so.
Yeah, definitely. So I do think, the wellness report's definitely a great starting point because it'll grade you, so to speak, on a few of these different the topics we covered today, and it gives you some contextual feedback. And I also think it's important to think appropriately for your nonprofit. So we did cover a lot today, and it's a lot. You could bite off more than you can chew sometimes if you try to do all of these things. So if you get a copy of the slides and see the things we've highlighted, sort of start from there. So, making sure the site's secure, looking at it from an accessibility standpoint. We're not asking you technically to redesign the entire site. You could always say that that's the best approach, right? It could always be improved. But I think, starting small, making some of these quick fixes, and then think about this again. It's like something that's living, breathing, and can evolve over time. So you don't have to launch with a ton of content. You don't have to have a site with a ton of pages, but make sure the site works on different devices. Make sure the site has a security certificate installed, and running it through that website wellness report will kind of highlight some of those, the low-hanging fruit, so to speak.
Awesome. All right. So we are close to time here. So if you guys don't mind, we have a post-event survey that we send out after webinars. So any feedback that you have for us, or any suggestions or things that you'd like to see more of, please let us know. We read all of them, and we take that into consideration when we're planning future content. If you're on social media, feel free to give us a follow. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We also have a blog if you're interested in reading some more tips and tricks and how-tos and things like that. We have a few webinars coming up at the end of February and then also in March. If you're interested in registering for these, they are all hosted on our website, so you can register from there. And then we also have TechSoup courses. So if you're interested in taking a deeper dive into topics such as Google Analytics or Facebook advertising, we do offer TechSoup courses, and we give 10% off to our webinar attendees, and we'll send out the coupon code in the follow-up email as well. All right. So I just want to thank Kyle and Joe again for your presentation. And we will be sending out all relevant information in the follow-up email. Thank you to Stephen and Melissa for helping on the back end, and to our webinar sponsor, Global Meet.
Thank you all.